It's a great honor and a privilege to introduce Helen Lieman, and your family name was Kaluska.
Yes.
And here we're in Johannesburg. And Helen, if you could just mention, where were you born and where did your family come from?
I was born in a town in Poland, name of Pultusk. It's like an hour out of Warsaw. And it was a big town. And
what year were you born in?
Exactly, I don't know. Because in Poland, the grandfathers put in their hummus in when the baby was born. I was born in Purim, that I know. Because they were expecting a boy and there was a girl, so there was a bris prepared. Anyway.
It was before the war?
Before the war, yes. Yes, here. This is...
If you can hold it close to you. Oh, that's
this
your
is
family.
A picture a year before the war.
A year before the war?
Mm-hmm.
So that's in 1938?
Yeah.
And where are you in the picture?
The second big, the second small one.
You can lift up.
That's my little sister. That's me. That's my sister, the elder sister. That's my brother. That's my father. That's my mother. That's my mother's sister.
If we can just lift up a little bit, and then that's a beautiful picture. Wow. And you are, where are you in the picture? If you could just point to us.
The next one to the little one.
So you are in the middle.
The middle one.
The middle one. Such a cute little girl. Wow.
So that's...
That was the year before the war, in 1938.
Before the war.
And this is in Poland. This was taken.
Yeah. I could have probably been 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, probably.
And was your family a religious family?
The family... When the Germans came in, the first thing they did, they went to homes that they wanted for their soldiers or for their, I don't know for whom. They knew exactly where to go. And the reason being, my father had a friend, a German doctor, that was his friend. And he was our house doctor. And we thought he's the biggest thing of ever. And according to later, we found out he was the spy for Germany. And he pointed out which homes they should take and evacuate for their soldiers and everything. So the first thing they did is they came in and they told us to come out, to go to the park. We had a beautiful park. And just take jewelry and money. That's all we could take. We all concentrated in the park, every Jew from Pultusk. And then we were disrobed and searched and taken away everything we brought. And then they said, you can't get back to your homes. You have to go to your friends, to the Russians, to the Russian border. And we had an army stationed in our town, cavalry, and they chased them all out. They were bombing from the top, killing the horses. And we were running with the soldiers. How long it took us to get to the Russian border, I wouldn't know, because we had many nights that we begged the Polish farmers to let us sleep over in their barns. Some would let us in, some were scared, and rightly so, because the Germans told them, if you hide Jews, we'll kill you all. And unfortunately, we didn't blame them. It must have taken weeks till we got to a river that apparently the White Russia, Bialystok, goes across that river. And there was a barge. And the Russians came across and they said, "Who are you? What do you want?" "We're running from the Germans." And the army, the soldiers also confirmed it. So they said, "Okay, we'll let you through." So they let us through, and they accommodated us there in places, schools and churches and whatever. And then they came and they asked the question, "What would you want to do? Stay in Russia and become a Russian citizen, or you want to go back to Poland?" Now, what happened prior to that, my father, my elder brother and sister were in Warsaw with my aunt. It was school holidays. So my father came up to my mother and he said, "Listen, you hide anywhere you like. I will find you. I must go and bring the children." That was the last we ever saw of anybody of the family. It was a huge family. My grandfather had 5 sons and 3 daughters, and siblings and children, and anyway, to cut a long story short, we registered to go back to Poland, assuming when the Germans go further on, we'll have a home, we'll find a family. So that was our plan. But the Germans were cleverer than that. They separated men from women, children from mothers, and all of that. We hung on, my little sister, 3.5, and me hung on to my mother. We landed up there in Russia, on the Russian side, White Russia. We registered to go back to Poland, to go to the family. It never happened. A month after that, all these that registered to go back to Poland were put in cattle wagons on the way to Siberia. Once a week, they opened the doors for us to let us out and to give us water and bread. Otherwise, we had buckets. And in Siberia, they accommodated us in a place where there was only water and forests. There wasn't a living human being except that place where they had people that were jailed for 25 years or over. And it was on the electric wire and everything. You couldn't go anywhere. There was nowhere to go. So we were there. The grown-ups worked in the forests. Children like me were supposed to go to school half day, learn the language, and then come and help clear up, because they were putting the logs on the river to ship it to a shipping station. And otherwise we were given 100 grams of bread a day and a plate of soup. And the rest we had to go to the forest to look for berries and mushrooms, whatever. In winter it was worse. My little sister, she was always hungry, and she wanted to go to sleep. It was snow. And I said, "No, you can't lie in the snow, you'll die." So I had to carry her. My mother complained all the time. She says, you know how to write, you learned how to write, why don't you write home to see if you get answers? So I kept on writing. One day my mother was very upset and cross. So I said to my teacher, I said, why don't we get an answer from home? Do they mail the letters and all that? She says, listen, I want to tell you something. Tell your mother, if she complains more, they will put her in lockup. You'll never see her again. She mustn't complain. And she says, you're a young girl, you're clever. I'll tell you what to do. She was humoring me. That I only found out later. Sit down, write a letter to Stalin. She says he's the father of all of us, and he will understand. So I sat down and I wrote a letter to Stalin. And then a little bit, sort of day by day, it went through that the better we shut up and don't say anything. And then I think it was 41, when the Germans attacked Russia, and the Polish army that was running with us said to the Russian government, we want to help you. We want to join. We want to help you wherever we can. Because we were not, the Russians didn't know about Jews, or we were not treated as Jews. We were Poles. So they said, okay, we'll agree to that, and what we'll do, we'll take all you Polish people out from here and we'll bring you to Kazakhstan. It's a better climate for you and you'll be better out there. So that's when they took us out from there, and we went by train first and then by boat on the Red Sea, and the Germans were bombing us, and we had to get to where we could hide the boat. And Irkutsk was a place where all the boats sort of landed. So we stopped at Irkutsk, and by then they ran out of food. There was no food on the boat and all of that. So they said you can go off the boat to town, you can go and see if you can find some food and all that. My mother said to me, you're the only one that speaks well Russian, and I can't leave you, little sister. Go. The tram car was going past there, and I hung on to, not only me, a lot of children, we hung on to the tram car. You went into town, past shops, past a shop. The Russians were baking like a cake from rice. It was huge things, and they were selling it by slices. I walked into the shop and I said to the woman there that was selling, I said, look, I have got no money. And my mother and my little sister are still on the boat. We haven't eaten for 3 days by now. I don't know how we did it or what we did or whatever. I said, please, can I just have a piece? She cut a piece, and I ran back. I got a tram car back. to the ship. I was dying to put the piece in my mouth, but I didn't. And my mother then said to me, never forget it, she says, of the three of us, there'll only be one survivor, and it'll be you. Because you don't need much food. My little sister cried all the time. When people here come up to you after a meeting and they say, how did you do it? They came up to me and Irene once, and I said, we don't know. We don't know. And we don't know how we did it. We stole, we begged, we did everything you can possibly think of. Then when winter came in Kazakhstan, it also snows and it's cold. I had frostbitten toes because I grew out of my shoes. I gave it to my little sister. And the Kazakh people were very clever. They crocheted from string like sandals. So they put them inside whatever. And she made a pair of shoes like this for me. And she said to me, I'll teach you to crochet this and handbags. And you can go to the people around, maybe exchange for some food. So we did that. And the farmers, whatever they had, because they came and they took everything for the army from them as well. So whatever they could, a bit of pumpkin, a few potatoes or whatever. And the rest we used to go whenever they harvested something in the field, we scrunched on the ground to find melons, whatever. We did whatever we had to do. And one day, my mother said to me, she says, we've got already a little bit of these sandals, let's go to a farm and see if we can find some food for it. So we walked in the snow. And as we were walking, we saw blood marks. And my mother said, oh, shame, somebody must be hurt. Let's follow the pattern of this blood, which we did. And when it stopped, we started digging with our hands. And we found a goose. Somebody had killed a goose and buried it there. There were two, actually. So my mother says, what do we do? I said, no, we'll take one and leave one. Otherwise we'll starve. So that's what we did. We ran back and we buried it in the snow behind the hut, because that's all they had, is a hut with the Kazakh people to live in. Anybody. They gave us to these Kazakh people. The Kazakh people were second-rate citizens in Russia. They didn't go to school, they didn't go to the army, nothing. They lived in rundavels exactly like the blacks live here, slept on mats on the floor, and cooked in the middle of this. There was no way we could fit in. There was a mother and a son. So summer we slept outside on mats. In winter we all slept inside on mats. from sleeping outside, I got malaria. And they took me to the nearest hospital, and I had to take quinine. Tablets were that size. I had to swallow them. But in Siberia, I got day blindness. During the day there, 3 months in the year, you've got the sun, but you can't, the workers can't work during the day because there's a little fly that attacks the eyes. So at night, it's very light, it's like daytime, so they worked at night. But I got day blindness. But when you leave the place, it comes right. Today I'm suffering. Today I've got, what do they call it? Can't see. I get injections every month. So we took that goose, and every day my mother used to cut a piece and put some snow in and boil it up a little bit, and we chewed on it. I don't think if we had that, if all 3 of us would come back. Don't think so. We were really starving by that time. But then they asked us, how did you do it? This is only like 2 days out of 5 years that we'd gone from place to place, from hell to hell, with no clothing, with no food, with no... My sister and I got typhoid. We were in hospital. They took us away to a little town. And there was a room full of children. And there was no food. They said everything is gone for the army. No medicine. And children were dying like flies. How my little sister and I made it, I really don't know. My mother couldn't come in, but through the window, whatever she could scrunch, she used to bring us. And one day she came, she brought a bottle of wine, grape wine. She said, that's all the farmer had. I couldn't find any food. So all us children who was there in the room, we all drank of some of that wine. And we started all shaking our cots. We want food, we want food. But I didn't have food. So how people can get through that, and somebody from, especially from South Africa, that doesn't know what life is, and we're spoiled rotten, they ask us, how did we do it? How do you explain that makes sense? How do you explain something that makes sense? And it's just a small section of what happened. And this is why our children couldn't know, because we couldn't disrupt their life with the knowledge of it. Today, they say, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us? I said, because it wasn't something children should go through or know. You had to look forward to a new life, hopefully, and learn and be normal. That's the main important thing, to grow up normal. And we come back in 45. Going through all of that, come back. They put us back onto the trains and bring us back to Poland, but not to Poland as such. They bring us back to a section which was Germany. They all decided, they cut up pieces. Russia took some pieces, Germany took some pieces, and they took some pieces of Poland, and they gave some pieces that was on the border of Poland, gave to Poland. And this is where we were brought back. Why not to our hometowns? Why not to our homes? Maybe we'll find somebody from families. And we were told straight away, there's no survivors there. The survivors were already taken out, and they're all on the Red Cross lists. And there was nobody.
And your mother found out that your father and your brother...
Only my mother and me and my little sister survived. So we had no family, no home, nowhere to go, no money, no clothing. The rabbis and all the religious people were shot in front of us before anything started in the park. So they sent some from America, some from England. We were told you can go there and talk to a rabbi or something. We talked to the rabbis and said, we've got no answers for you. Do you know how many people committed suicide after the war?
When they found out that their families were all killed.
You come back to nothing. I mean, we as children probably didn't sort of feel it that much as my mother. And my mother had a complete bodily breakdown. Had to rush her into a hospital. She was never the same.
Is this Helen when she found out that her husband was on the list? That he was killed? Murdered?
So I had a little sister. I had her sick in the hospital. Whatever age I was then, because it was 5 years later, 14 or whatever, I couldn't cope. So there was a group of young men that survived. And they organized themselves to look for survivors and to see how can they help them. And each one, from whichever area they came, they knew where the Polish people hid Jewish children, and they will only release them for money, so you had to negotiate. And one day, every day all we did is look at the Red Cross lists. And my grandfather survived in Russia. And he was in a German old age home. So I said to my mother, when you come out of hospital, we'll go on the train and we'll go and find him. And that's what we did. I dressed her up as a peasant woman because it was dangerous. The Poles were killing Jews still because they didn't want to give the properties away and all of that. So we went on the train and we came. That was also German part of Poland now. We arrived there like midnight. And the station master said, "Where are you going?" I said, "We have to go to the old age home." He says, "It's dangerous, you can't go now. You've got to wait till daylight and I'll show you where to go." I told my mother, "Don't open your mouth, you Polish, who's got an accent, they'll know straight away." So that's what we did. And he took us out and he said to us, "You see, there's a house, there's got lights. Walk towards there." Okay? So we're walking and I see there's two young men coming with rifles. So I said to my mother, I said, "Don't get frightened, but it's two young men coming with rifles towards us." She says, "My child be expected at any time, so don't worry." So we walked on. And then they come near us and they asked us our names and where we're going and everything. And eventually they said, "Don't get frightened. We're also Jewish."
Wow.
So that was, they said, "We'll take you to the old age home there. We know there's Jewish people there." And that was, these young men were the ones that organized themselves, and that was near the Czechoslovakian border. And they paid up the Czechoslovakian border that one night a week they will let through some people. And from there was organized that they smuggled them through to Berlin. And in Berlin, there was a whole lot from Israel already, people taking them to kibbutzim, to Israel. So I sent my little sister away like that too, because I couldn't cope with the little sister and a sick mother. Anyway, we go to my grandfather's place, and the first thing he asked the young people, "Have you got anybody left?" That was the question. And the one said, "Nobody." The other one said, "Yes, he's got distant family that he can join them." And the one that said, "He's got nobody," my grandfather said, "You've got to take him into our family. Can't leave an orphan." But he says to my mother, "There's a young girl at home. We can't just take him in. I'll marry them." He was a very learned man. "I will marry them. They'll be legally married. They can marry in court later if they want." That's how I married my husband.
That was your husband? And how, was he much older than you?
We were married for 68 years.
Wow.
Unfortunately, he had a damaged lung from the camps.
Sure, so he was the one that met you that night and you got married. And what was the age difference?
He was a young boy. There was about 3 years difference between us. We were teenagers, basically. But that was the only way to get him into at least a unit that has somebody.
And Helen, can I ask, how was it when you met your grandfather for the first time? It must have been very emotional when your mother saw him and when you saw him.
Well, this is why he said, if God gave me life after all of that, I've got to make sure that this boy is in a home with somebody. He can't let him live on his own. So he married us. And we took my grandfather with us back. He came back because they were already finishing off all that transactions with Czechoslovakia. And we lived in Poland still. He was organizing, he was buying ammunition for Israel, rifles and all of that. He was collecting money. He says, I can't leave before I do something for Israel.
This is 1945, 46.
In 1950, the Polish government even took away our citizenship so that they don't have to give us back our properties.
And where did you stay in Poland?
Where the it was Germany before. Poland gave them certain sections of Poland that they wanted, and this is where we stayed.
And you remember the town?
Yes, of course, Szczecin. Yeah. And we even joked that the street was named after me, Helena Street. So, number 15 Helena Street. So we lived there. And my husband was in touch with people that collecting for Israel things and all that. And then the Polish government announced that they'll give us back our citizenship, but we have to leave Poland. And the last ship will go from Italy. And in December 1950. So we had to go to Czechoslovakia, from Czechoslovakia to Italy, and there we boarded an Israeli boat that they have, was, I don't know what it was, but they made bunkers, whatever, so that, so with that boat, and it was 90% of the people were so sick. It was December, the waters were very bad, and I remember that whoever the captain or in charge of that boat was, they put up food, and he says, we didn't even recognize some of the food. There was zeytin and
it's olives and
pilpalim and whatever. We didn't know what it was. Never saw it, we couldn't eat it. He says, I want to tell you something. Eat, 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 because tomorrow you will not eat. That I can guarantee you. And he was right. Everybody was so sick. And we arrived in Haifa. And it was a Friday, and we couldn't get off. They wouldn't let us get off on a Friday night, Friday evening. And we went to absorption center. Athlete. Again on the wires. It was terrible. We lived again in a lockup. By that time, we had a baby of 1 year old. He got sick. And we came to this Bet Olim, and they said there's a clinic there, you can take him. And go to the clinic, there's a doctor, he says he's going away for Shabbat. There's nobody else. My husband picked up a chair. He says, listen, I've got nothing to lose and I've seen already everything. If you don't attend to my child, I'll kill you.
Sure.
And the doctor saw that he's either dealing with not normal people or he meant it. He meant it. So he stayed and looked after the child. But it took its toll to be again under wire.
Why were you under wire? Why?
We were under quarantine.
Under quarantine. But this was already 1950. It was under quarantine.
And we felt, okay, we're not in danger, but I don't think we could handle anymore. It started off as children. You know, we're responsible for a baby. Then my mother said that she's got brothers in Africa. She said, your father sent them all out. He knew a war was coming. So there were 4 brothers of his. The one was a banker, he wouldn't go. But these were single brothers. I only remember one of them. The other 3, I wasn't born yet when they left. So they were, after that there were 2 in Johannesburg and 2 had to go to Rhodesia, I think. She says to me, I think you and your husband and the baby, because even when we did come out of the absorption center, there was food on ration. There was so little food. There were Arab immigrants, they were all coming. We had to share a tent with an Arab single guy. They said, we're not Jewish, and we most certainly never saw Jews like them.
There was Jews from Arab lands. They brought them from Yemen and from North Africa.
From everywhere. And my mother said the best thing is that if you find somebody to make a plan to go with your brothers, your father gave them a lot of money and you'll be better off. We didn't know this, we didn't know that, we didn't know what we want or what we need or what. So eventually somebody said, I can try and find out. And they went to find out, said, South Africa, Jews, you're not allowed in. South Africa didn't let the Jews in at that stage.
They had a quota act.
But the British ambassador said, you can go to Rhodesia. Who the hell knows? We didn't know where South Africa is or Rhodesia. And you haven't got a language and you don't know. He says, look, if you agree, I will fix everything up for you. I know your situation and I know whatever. So eventually, after 2 years, he said, they will let you into Rhodesia. Because one of the brothers from Johannesburg came to live there and they found out, and he had a factory, so they said it's fine. And that's how we landed up in Rhodesia.
Where in Rhodesia?
Landed up in Salisbury. And then the brothers from Johannesburg came to Rhodesia. And they were having a meeting. A meeting ended up being, as far as I'm concerned, a disgusting fight. Who took more money from my father? Who did what with the money? What should we do with these aliens that arrived here? And I said, oh, they didn't even ask if we know anything about the family, if we found anybody. Nothing. Only this. Even at the age I was, I couldn't understand it. Eventually they made a decision and they come to. My husband said then, me leave out, it's your family, I'm not interfering. They made a decision. Okay, I said, what's your decision? Seeing that you can't even speak English and all of that, we will either supply you with groceries for the month or pay you what you need for the month. And I listened to all of that. And I said, did I survive for all of that? No. I said to the one uncle that was very pushy, sort of. I said, I also made a decision. He says, how old are you? You can make a decision? I said, listen, if I survive the Holocaust, I can make a decision. He said, what is your decision? I said, my decision is you can keep your groceries, you can keep your money. It belonged to my father, not me. And I don't want to know you. I never knew you before. I don't want to know you. And my husband met a man that lived in Bulawayo. He was a traveler. He was a Holocaust survivor. So he met him at some stage. He came a year before me to Rhodesia. I said, go and find out what it's all about. All he kept on telling me, it's your family, not mine. I can't. Whatever. So this guy said to us, you come to Bulawayo. I'll find you where to live. I'll find you a job. You'll be much happier. There's more Holocaust survivors there that understand you. I said, fine, that's what we'll do. And that's what we did. I did not speak to them till my son needed bar mitzvah. And I never told my mother that because she stayed behind in Israel and she wasn't well at all. And I never told her what his brothers did. But when we made a sort of meager bar mitzvah for my eldest son, because I had another baby in Israel, I found them or I wrote to them, whatever. And I invited them. I said, at least I can tell my mother I invited your brothers for the Belgrade show. You think they didn't come? They all came. I couldn't look at them. I said to them, I said, how about that? I said, we can both speak English, we can both have jobs. My husband even works 2 jobs. All that without you money. Not you money, my father's money. My children have what they need, not what they want maybe, but what they need.
Sure. Helen, it's unbelievable.
So this is...
Did they apologize? Did they say, we're so sorry?
Not in their nature.
They never wanted to find out how you were coping, how you were surviving?
I told them I didn't have to wait for them to ask me because I didn't want them to feel sorry for me or anything. I coped very well. We coped very well. Bulawayo was a wonderful place to heal. The people were wonderful.
And there were other Holocaust survivors in Bulawayo?
There were other Holocaust survivors. As a matter of fact, there was a Jewish school for preschool, and they came to me and they said, we want your child to go to this school. I said, no, thank you. He said, no, you're not going to pay. We know you can't pay. I said, no, that's not the reason. I said, my children are going to mix with everybody. I don't want them to be known only as the little Jew or whatever and go to a ghetto. No, my children are going to be brought up with everybody that lives in the country. And that's what I did. I had enough isolation. It cost me plenty being Jewish.
But Helen, did you become part of the Jewish community in Bulawayo?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I got a job from a man. We lived in a house there, an old house. And on the same premises, this guy built a block of flats. He was a Jewish guy. And strangely enough, a family, Holocaust survivors, lived in that old house. They were leaving for Canada. And he says, I'm going to give you this house to live in. And next door was a block of flats, and the one guy came, he was from Lithuania, so he came to talk to us. And he married a Romanian girl, and they didn't have children. And he came every day from work. I don't know when he came to Rhodesia, but he was not a Holocaust survivor. And he had a shop, and he did quite well. So he used to bring for the children this, that, and the other that I couldn't afford. He just watched and helped. And that's how the Bulawayo community was. And then I said to him one day, I said, Isaac, all I really need is a job. We can't manage with what we're earning. till the end of the month. You can't manage from month to month. He says, look, I'll ask around. I said, can only be in a Jewish something because I can't, my English is not for a job. Anyway, the following day he comes in, he says, I've got a job for you for a month. I said, anything, it'll help. But what is it? He says, I've got a friend of mine who's got a men's outfitting shop, and his mother-in-law is going away for a month that helps him out. I said, okay, but how will I communicate? He says, don't worry, he's a Lithuanian, and he speaks German and he speaks Yiddish. I said, okay, that's good. So I went and I met him. He says, do you know the money? I said, yes. So I said, how do I write you a receipt to show you? It was a big men's shop. He says, write in any language you want, as long as you can tell me what it was. I said, okay, that'll work. And that's how we started. And then his parents sort of adopted us for Yom Tovim, for Friday nights and all this. It was wonderful. So I worked for him. There were 3 black salesmen. One was a young one, and he somehow or other got through to me with language so much better than anybody. So he says, listen, when they choose from the window what they want, basically. And then you show them whatever else you've got. I will tell you if it's a shirt or trousers or a belt or a tie or whatever it is, I will tell you, and I will write it for you in English, and you will write it in our language below, so that you'll learn.
Wow.
When my son started school, I used to give him a list in Hebrew, items, and say, please ask your teacher, you tell her what it is, to write it in English for me, the items we have in the shop. That's how I started learning.
That's how you learned.
And I worked for him. The mother-in-law never returned back from Johannesburg. And the month came, and I said, is that? He says, no, my mother-in-law never came back. You stay as long as she's not here. I can't, there's 3 doors. You have to watch and you have to. Anyway, after a year or 2, and he said to me something else. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll teach you English and you teach me Hebrew. I said, okay. I learned English, he never learned Hebrew. So after a few years, I got sort of, the guts came back, and I said to him, he complained business is bad. I said to him, just don't shout at me, I'm going to tell you something. I said, business is only bad because all you're selling is old-fashioned stuff. I've been in Europe, I've been in Israel, and everything came on new and different and all of that. And I see here it's just a pair of brown trousers and a white shirt, and I said, there's nothing really much to choose from. So he looked at me. I don't know, it was probably in me, I mean, I don't know. I said, I'm sorry if I offended you, but... So he says, when the traveler comes next time, you want to buy modern stuff? I said, I'd like to. So he says, okay, one condition. Whatever you don't sell, you get paid in kind. I said, okay. And that's when I started doing business.
Sure.
And I started buying the goods. And he bought a farm. And I ran the shop for 14 years.
Wow.
And we lived in Bulawayo for 17 years. And then I had two cousins in Salisbury. When we came, they were the same age as us. So they were the only two that sort of understood a little bit more us and all that. And they had 5 supermarkets. And they talked to my husband and said, I'd like you to come back to Salisbury now and to run one of the supermarkets for me. And my husband says, what about Helen? She's got such a wonderful job. He said she won't have a problem finding a job here.
Sure.
And all that. And I went and I worked in 3 departmental stores, 3 different departmental stores I worked in all the years we were in Rhodesia.
How many years did you land up in Rhodesia?
25 years.
Wow, Helen, I'm just going to ask you because my wife comes from Rhodesia. Did you know the Schwartz or Libauer?
Yeah.
A Doreen and a Shimmy Schwartz?
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
late father and mother-in-law.
Yeah.
And the Libauer family, they came
Yeah.
from Latvia.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, we were not like born Rhodesians or South Africans, and we behaved differently. Some of the people accepted us as we are, and some were looking for, they're different. We were different. You're right. But especially Bulawayo, it was the most wonderful place. The people were exceptional. It was a very good healing place. Nobody like I have seen even there in the Jewish community, the newcomers were mocked by some people. Look at the English, look at this, look at... I was only corrected nicely and...
This was in Bulawayo?
Yeah.
And in Salisbury?
Salisbury, I already spoke a perfect English. I didn't need anybody.
Can I ask, did you belong to the Ashkenazi or the Sephardi community in Salisbury?
Sorry?
Were you part of the Ashkenazi or the Sephardi community?
The Ashkenazi. But we mixed. We all mixed. We all mixed. We really mixed, yes.
And what year did you leave Rhodesia?
We left once to go back to Israel in 76.
Was your mother still alive?
Yeah. And I think that should sort of forced me to try and spend some time with her. And we went back on our pan because we didn't have enough Hebrew.
And Helen, can I ask, what happened with your sister? Where was she during this time?
She ended up in a kibbutz like they all did. But when we came, she came out and she lived with us. She got married. unfortunately, she died before me.
Right. Did she remain very close with your mother in Israel?
Yeah.
So your mother had a...
Yeah.
When you left, at least she had
my
another
mother
daughter.
couldn't come to Rhodesia because she was quoted mentally disturbed by Israeli psychiatrists. Now that's another story, okay? There was a psychiatrist that came here once on the cemetery on Yom HaShoah. And he told his story as being of German birth, and there were 6 children. In 1933, when my husband's family comes also from Berlin, my husband's cousin, father's cousin, came to Poland in 1933, and he says to the family there, he says, I'm packing up and I'm going to Israel because there's going to be a war. He had one of the daughter's birthday, and one of the big shots, I can't remember which one it was, came and told him, Helen Lieman, sie müssen verlassen. Ja, no, jetzt. Müssen verlassen. So he picked up and came. And the Polish family said, there's nothing here happening. We've got businesses. And they didn't come. That's why not one survived. Not one survived. That's why my husband remained alone. And when I came to Israel, I worked with his father's cousin. He had a delicatessen shop and he had a franchise for coffee, so he grinded and roasted the coffee, and I was the dispatcher. I ran in the buses all around to dispatch what was allowed on the card that you got for that. The things I didn't do, I don't know.
Helen, did you stay close with your sister through these years?
Yes and no. And there was a reason for it. I only found out a bit later. My mother claimed compensation from the Germans. In Israel, they had good lawyers. In Rhodesia, we had no lawyers. We had nothing. We didn't get anything all the years we were in Rhodesia. Not my husband, not I. Eventually, when we went to Israel the second time around, we went there to an office, a German office, and they said, but you're entitled. I said, yes, but we didn't have lawyers that knew what to do and all that. So they back paid us some money. And they said, no, you're on the list, so whatever will come up, we will let you know. Anyway, we missed out on a lot of stuff. But when my mother applied, she wasn't very literate. So well, my sister married a Romanian guy, and he was very greedy for money. And when the question came about, is there anybody else that survived? The answer was no.
Oy. And he knew there was. Oy.
I only found out that years later.
Well, you're so sad with money.
I'm not a money's person. I don't. As long as I've got enough to live on or whatever, it didn't upset me about the money, but it upset me to write me off after what I'd gone through. That upset me.
But did you phone? Were you in touch with each other?
I'm one person that finds out, forgets, and that's it. I went every single year to Israel to see my mother and my sister.
It's Helen, you are amazing. Yeah, wow.
Every single year. And I brought them whatever I could carry, whatever they were short of. My father, as I said, was a very wealthy man. Maybe I get it from him. Money doesn't matter. It's not, you should have enough to carry on. No, I know that I need a lot for medical stuff, and not that I'm worried how long I'm going to live.
And maybe 3 months.
But I just hope, because my children unfortunately didn't inherit anything from anybody. They had to start work early, and they did very well for themselves, but that time's so bad now. I've got the one son here, one is in Canada.
And you've got a grandchild in Israel?
We had 2 sons. One is here, one is in Canada. We've got 5 grandchildren. We've got 9 great-grandchildren.
Cain and Horace, that's wonderful.
The one is going into the army this year.
In Israel?
Wow. We were teenagers when we had children. When our children were small and we used to walk with them, they thought we were brothers and sisters. So I'm proud of that. I'm very sorry and upset that my husband didn't live as long as me to see the last ones. 2 he missed out on.
But he's seeing from above, Helen, he's seeing from above.
So they tell me, and I have to be happy with that. But I found out a lot about his survival, that he couldn't even tell the family, us. He met a rabbi here when we came from Rhodesia, and he was in hospital. This rabbi came to see. He had a damaged lung from the German factories. He apparently confided in him some things. Whether he thought I was too young then to burden me with more than I had to, whatever, I don't know. But anyway, he told him certain things that not me, not my children knew, and all of that. And the only day we found out is the day he was buried.
The rabbi told you?
Called us, whole family, into a room and told us. And I couldn't go on to the cemetery. I never can. I can't see another body buried. I don't know where the others are. And I can't, the minute I go on to a cemetery, I go to pieces. The only time I go is for Yom Shor, to light candles and to be with the Holocaust survivors. And I don't go further than that. I can't handle. And I don't know why. I think it's barbaric. maybe I was too young, too naive to believe, but I hoped we'd go together. I know it's stupid, and I'm not stupid, that I know. I know. But I can't understand why we had to go through a life like that and lose everybody. And even my sister, younger than me, why did she have to die? I was in Israel, as I say, every year. And I was there in Israel. My sister was having blood tests. And I said to her, what are the blood tests for? She said she doesn't know. And my sister she was very shrewd. I said, I don't believe that. She says, ask Leah, that's her daughter. Her daughter was a bit of a character, which we clashed, and her daughter wouldn't communicate with me if she thought that anything maybe my sister has will be in danger if I come there. Though I could never inherit from my sister anything. She was a big woman or anything like that, or jewelry or whatever. I'm not that kind of a person. Anyway, so she says, it's nothing, I'll let you know what the results were. And I kept on phoning, and every time she told me something else. And she kept on saying, call Leah. I said, no, there's something not right. I said to my husband, I am booking a ticket, I'm going to see what's going on. So I had a week to my trip, and I get a call from her son, my sister's daughter's son. I get a call from him later on. He says to me, do you want to see your sister alive? Tavoi עכשיו.
Come right now.
עכשיו.
And you'd already booked the ticket?
I cancelled that ticket and I went the same weekend. And she took her away from Kfar Saba. They've got a beautiful oncology there. The hospital Meir.
God knows.
And she took her outside Tel Aviv. That was so that friends can't come and pass on information to me. Had to travel with 2 buses. And that hospital was being renovated, and I couldn't understand why she's not in Meir Hospital. So I found a doctor that, my Hebrew is not bad, but when it comes to medical explanations or whatever, I said, is there a doctor that can speak English that maybe I can work out? Found a young doctor, and he came and talked to me. And I said, what is wrong with her? She's half the body. I wouldn't have recognized. He says, I'm sorry to tell you that she was brought in here much too late. I said, too late for what? He says, she's got pancreatic cancer.
And there's no cure.
So I said, so why are you keeping her here? All you're giving her is painkillers And she keeps on telling everybody, "Know that my sister is here, I'm going to get better." I said, "Tell me something, is there a hospice in Israel?" He says, "Yes." I said, "Where?" He says, "In Kfar Saba." I said, "But that's where she lives." I said, "I want her transferred today. Let all her friends come at least, see her and all this. And I don't have to take 2 buses. I've already had trouble then with one leg." They transferred her, and I got to see her. And that was the biggest shock of my life. Bet Ayoldot, where she had her son, I had my son, has become a hospice.
Wow. That's so sad.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And I said, "What fate?" And she kept on telling everybody, "Know that my sister is here."
Sure.
And she told everybody the story. I didn't let her die in the woods. And now it's out of my hands. And I said to the doctor, "You have to tell me when it's time, because I need to go home. I can't bury her. That I can't do. That is not my function. I'm here to see her as long as she's alive." So I spent 2 weeks, and I said to her, I said, "Silla, listen, you know Mendel is suffering also with lungs, and I have to be at home. When you come out of hospital, I will come and spend as much time as you want." In the meantime, I went to all her friends, and I said, "Listen, this is the story.
Your daughter didn't tell the friends?
I'd like you to go and keep her company."
Sure.
She had lots of friends.
You always looked after your sister, hey, Helen? Wow.
She was a little she-devil, the daughter. She was. She married at 16, divorced at 17, didn't want the children, had 2 children, didn't want them, told her husband she's too young to care for children. Her husband's mother and my sister, between them, they brought up the children. And married, I don't know, she married 3 times, then she married an Arab. And unfortunately, she didn't end up. She had I don't know what these operations are called, to reduce your fat.
It's like operation.
So she had one of these and was told, obviously, that you can only eat so much and no more and all that. And after the operation, she went to get double the size. And her son again phones me and says, "My mother's going to have another operation." I said, "Liran, your mother I can't talk to. But I can tell you that this is very dangerous second time around." And she never came off the table at the age of 50.
But Helen, I want to ask you, you've gone through so much. What message would you give? What message would you give after all your experience and...
What makes me? I cherish life. I'd like to see what becomes of my great-grandchildren? I've got one that'll be 18 this year. As I said, he's going to the army.
It's amazing.
That's in Israel. That's my one granddaughter lives in Israel now. And she's got a girl of 15. She is beyond brilliant. She's the mayoress, the junior mayoress of Ranana.
Wow.
She works with the La Cartola here.
Like Magenda Viradon.
Yeah, Vitadom. And she, I don't know, she wants to do medicine, obviously, and she does everything. And she's beautiful to the boot.
Oh, it's wonderful.
She came to see me here, she just her granny, and she had 2 boys when she came to Israel. So she's got one of 10 and one of 7. Then I've got here a granddaughter that's also got one son of 17, will be 18, and he wants to do medicine. Also a junior mayor of Johannesburg.
Wonderful.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Helen, you've got a lot of nachas. You've got a lot of nachas.
I have. But you know what I am? I need more people to share it with me. My family. That's when I miss the ones that are not here. And my husband's the last one, so of course I miss him the last, because when my other great-grandson had his bar mitzvah 2 years ago, and he made a speech about his grandfather, great-grandfather, and then he came to me, he says, "Granny, I'm so sorry, so sorry." So we both had a cry. And he loved them so.
Sure.
He loved them so. And I've got these 3 granddaughters. They're very capable people. I've got all that since the war. And I'm very proud of them. And not that I'd like to live forever. I'd just like to see that they are okay. I pray these days there won't be any wars for my children to experience and all of that. I just want to help as many people as I can with whatever.
Helen, you're amazing. Helen, I'm just going to thank you so much. I just want to tell you, Helen, it's been the greatest honor to listen to your life, really. And you're an amazing person, Helen.
I cannot talk to everybody. There are people in the beginning in Rhodesia, as I said, there was nobody took interest. You could have told them that you're the Messiah from heaven. Didn't mean nothing. They were so not traveled and not aware of things and all that I felt bad. Like, say, you mean you don't know? Or
you don't want to know. Some people didn't want to know.
Yeah. Anyway, but when we came here, it was different. And a lot of people want to know just because they want to know.
Well, Helen, I just want to tell you, to meet you and to hear your life. It's your life. It is so privileged. It's such an honor to hear.
I haven't even touched anything.
But we'll see again when I come back. But I want to thank you, Helen, from the bottom of my heart. It's been the greatest honor and privilege.
So I sort of feel myself through who I can talk to. because it's not a pleasure to talk
It's very
to
difficult.
somebody that doesn't even absorb what I'm talking about.
Well, I just want to tell you, Helen, it's been the greatest honor and the privilege.
Thank you.
And you should have just mazel and bracha and
Thank
good
you.
health and nachas from your family, your dear
Thank you.
family.
Well,
You
that's
so
it.
deserve. You really deserve.
The one
And your
thing-
husband is seeing from above. There's no question. So it is such an honor, Helen. And she goes, oh, this would be wonderful. You had a very special husband. Wow. Helen, that's a beautiful picture. And I just want to thank you so much. And you must keep on smiling and just enjoy your family and just have nachas.
Thanks.